Governments tell us that printing money is a tool for stability, a way to support economies, protect citizens, and stimulate growth. But if that were true, why does every new wave of printed money make ordinary people poorer? Why do wages fall behind, prices rise, and debt spreads through society like a shadow that never stops growing? The deeper truth is simple and disturbing. When governments print wealth, people receive only the debt that wealth creates. Picture the scene. A government announces a new stimulus. Overnight, billions or trillions are created with a few keystrokes. And while citizens imagine this money flowing into public services, support programs, or relief, the reality is far more controlled. New money goes first to banks, corporations, and asset markets, the financial elite closest to the printing machine. By the time this money trickles down to the average worker, its value has already been diluted by inflation. The wealth is created at the top, the cost is pushed onto everyone else. But to understand how this became normal, we must go back nearly a century, to a time when money still meant something, when it represented gold and vaults and reserves that governments had to protect. The Great Depression changed everything. As banks collapsed and economies froze, governments discovered an uncomfortable truth. People expect the government to fix crises. Even if the fix is nothing more than flooding the system with artificial money. That moment planted the seed of easy money, a strategy that worked in the short term but carried invisible long-term consequences. After World War II, the Bretton Woods system tied global currencies to the US dollar and the dollar to gold. It was stable, disciplined, and credible. But by the late 1960s, the US had quietly printed more dollars than the gold it owned. Foreign governments began demanding actual gold for their dollars, exposing a fatal imbalance. And then came the moment that changed the financial world forever, in 1971. President Richard Nixon suspended the dollar's convertibility into gold. What was called temporary became permanent. Money no longer needed gold. From that day forward, money became an idea, something governments could create without limits. This was the rise of fiat currency, money backed by nothing but government decree. Once the anchor was removed, spending exploded. Governments realized they could fund wars, programs, and promises without increasing taxes. They simply borrowed more and let central banks create the money. Debt became the foundation of modern economies, because every printed dollar required someone somewhere to owe it back. This created a silent breaking point. The system now depended on constant borrowing, constant printing, and constant expansion. Governments issue bonds. Banks buy these bonds with newly created money, and the public pays the interest through higher taxes, higher prices, and reduced purchasing power. Printed money enters the system at the top, into financial institutions, stock markets, corporate loans, and government projects. And the inflation that follows lands on everyone else. The fallout touches every part of life. Wages lag behind living costs. Savings lose value year after year. Houses become unaffordable. Rent rises faster than paychecks. Even basic necessities, food, electricity, transportation, feel like luxuries compared to a decade ago. People borrow not for comfort, but for survival. Debt becomes normal, expected, unavoidable. And why? Because the system itself is built on debt. When governments print money, citizens inherit the inflation and the burden that printing creates. What's worse is that every attempted fix makes the underlying problem worse. Interest rates are cut to stimulate borrowing. Money printing increases to fuel spending. Governments expand credit to mask structural weaknesses. But you cannot solve a debt problem by creating more debt, yet that's exactly what modern economies do. Each crisis requires more printing than the last. Each solution creates a larger future crisis. It's a cycle with no natural endpoint. Look at the repeating pattern. The debt boom of the 1980s, the dot-com crash of 2000, the housing collapse of 2008, the trillions printed in 2020, the inflation surge that followed, and the global debt crisis now unfolding. The same strategy is applied over and over because the system has no alternative. And the numbers reveal the truth. Global debt is now over $300 trillion, higher than at any point in human history. In just the past few years, Over 1/3 of all existing US dollars were created out of thin air. Housing prices in many countries are increasing 10 times faster than wages. Household debt has reached record highs around the world. The pattern is undeniable. The mechanism is undeniable. And the outcome is always the same. Governments print wealth. People receive debt. Inflation quietly steals from savers. Asset prices lock ordinary people out. Small percentage of the population captures the newly created wealth, and everyone else carries the burden that keeps the system running. So what do we take away from this? First, printing money is not a gift. It is a transfer of wealth from the public to those who receive new money first. Second, inflation is not an accident. It is the predictable result of expanding the money supply faster than real productivity. Third, debt is not a side effect. It is the core product of the system, the engine that keeps modern economies alive. And here, the warning. As long as governments rely on printing and borrowing to solve every crisis, each new solution will be larger, riskier, and harder to escape. The system will keep expanding until it cannot expand anymore. If you want to understand how money really works, not the version in textbooks, but the version that shapes your future, stay curious, question everything, and never take official explanations at face value. If this opened your eyes even a little, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more deep financial breakdowns, and share this with someone who still thinks printing money makes a nation richer.